My day usually starts like clockwork. The alarm goes off at 6 a.m. sharp. I stumble out of bed, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, and head straight for the coffee machine. Coffee is my first real conversation of the day, silent and comforting. By 6:30, I'm showered and dressed, my tie neatly in place, my briefcase packed with the day's necessities. Jenna, my wife, is usually still in bed when I leave, her soft breathing a stark contrast to the morning chaos. We've been married for 8 years now. Jenna works part-time as a graphic designer, a job she balances deftly with her passion for painting. I work at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown. The drive is about 20 minutes on a good day, with the city waking up around me. My boss, Rick, is also the owner of the firm. He's charismatic, the kind of guy who knows everyone by name and makes sure you know he remembers. Rick hired me 5 years ago, and he's been more than just a boss. He's been a mentor and I thought a friend. We've shared countless lunches, discussing everything from ad campaigns to our weekend plans. His office, filled with sleek furniture and awards, is just down the hall from mine, and our morning greetings have become a ritual. Life at the office is busy but rewarding. My team is dynamic, always buzzing with new ideas and strategies. I'm in charge of some of our top clients, which means my days are filled with meetings, calls, and occasionally putting out fires. But I thrive on the pressure. It makes the successes that much sweeter. After work, I usually hit the gym. It's my hour to disconnect, a time when I can focus solely on the rhythm of my heartbeat and the weights in my hands. Jenna and I try to have dinner together every night. It's our time to reconnect. We talk about our day, our challenges, our little victories. Sometimes we just sit in silence, enjoying the comfort of each other's company. Weekends are for family. Jenna and I often host gatherings or go out with friends. Rick and his wife have joined us a few times. Seeing our bosses in a casual setting, laughing over barbecued ribs or a cold beer, always seemed to strengthen our bond. It's these moments that I've cherished, feeling fortunate for the life I've built and the people in it. But despite the routine and the familiarity, there's an undercurrent of something I hadn't quite noticed before. Jenna has been distant lately, often lost in thought. I've asked her if anything's wrong, but she brushes off my concerns with a smile and a kiss. Rick has been unusually insistent on me working late, pushing for tighter deadlines and more meetings. It's nothing, probably just the ebb and flow of life and work. But this morning, something felt different. Jenna kissed me goodbye with a hint of urgency, her eyes avoiding mine. And as I drove to work, the weight of her gaze and the strain in Rick's recent demands lingered in my mind, a nagging feeling that something was just not right. Little did I know, my typical day was about to take a turn that would change everything. Today was supposed to be like any other day. I woke up early, got ready for work, and shared a quiet breakfast with Jenna. She seemed more reserved than usual, but I chalked it up to a bad night's sleep. I kissed her goodbye and left for the office, the day's schedule running through my mind. At work, I settled into my routine, diving into emails and project updates. Around noon, Rick called me into his office to discuss the upcoming campaign. We went over the details and he seemed pleased with the progress. After the meeting, he asked me to grab his phone from his desk to check on a client's message he was expecting. As I picked up Rick's phone, it buzzed with a new message. Without thinking, I glanced at the screen, expecting the client's name to pop up. Instead, the message was from Jenna. My heart skipped a beat. It was odd seeing her name on Rick's phone, but what froze me in place was the content of the message. Can't wait until our next time. Confusion and disbelief washed over me. I stood there for a few seconds, staring at the message, trying to make sense of it. With shaking hands, I opened their message thread and scrolled through. The reality of what I was reading hit me like a ton of bricks. The messages were clear and damning, filled with details of meetups, intimate moments, and plans for more. I felt numb as I put Rick's phone back on his desk. My mind raced with questions, and anger bubbled up inside me. I walked back to my office, my legs heavy, my thoughts a whirlwind. How long had this been going on? How could they do this to me? After sitting at my desk, staring blankly at my computer screen for what felt like hours, I decided I had to confront Jenna. I left work early, the drive home a blur of red lights and honking horns that I barely noticed. When I arrived, Jenna was in the kitchen, humming to herself while chopping vegetables. I stood at the doorway, watching her for a moment. The normalcy of the scene before me made my next words even harder to find. Finally, I managed to speak, my voice rough with emotion. "Jenna, we need to talk." She turned around, surprise etching her face, probably at my early return. Seeing her like this, so familiar yet so foreign, fueled my resolve. I held up my phone, showing her the message I had forwarded from Rick's phone. "Can you explain this?" Jenna's face paled, her knife clattering to the countertop. She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again, her composure crumbling. I don't know what to say," she stammered, her eyes darting around the room, avoiding mine. The air between us was thick with tension and unsaid words. I waited for her to say something, anything that could make sense of the betrayal, but nothing could undo what was already done. As I stood there watching the woman I thought I knew, I realized that this was just the beginning of what would be a long and painful revelation. After the confrontation with Jenna, emotions raw and mind-racing, the next logical step seemed to march straight back to the office and confront Rick. The drive back felt different. Each traffic light and stop sign seemed to pulse with the same rhythm as my pounding heart, urging me on. Upon arrival, the office was quieter than usual, the hum of busy workdays muted, as if the building itself sensed the storm about to break. Rick's door was slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the dim hallway. I pushed the door open without knocking, an action that under normal circumstances would be unthinkable. Rick looked up, surprise registering on his face as he saw me standing there. He tried to greet me with his usual affable smile, but it faltered when he saw the expression on my face. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." He attempted a light tone, but it hung awkwardly in the air. "Cut the act, Rick," I snapped, my voice colder than I intended. "I know about you and Jenna." The words felt foreign as they left my mouth, but they carried the weight of betrayal, heavy and suffocating. For a moment, Rick said nothing. He leaned back in his chair, the creak of the leather seeming loud in the tense silence. Then, with a sigh, he leaned forward, his hands clasped together on the desk. "I was going to tell you," he began, his voice steady. "It's not what you think." "Not what I think?" "I saw the messages, Rick. Can't wait until our next time. What would you think?" My voice rose with each word, the hurt and anger boiling over. Rick ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration or guilt, I couldn't tell. "It was a mistake," he admitted, his gaze finally meeting mine. "It started a few months ago. I know I should have stopped it. I know it was wrong." "A mistake?" I echoed, the word bitter. "Mistakes are when you forget to send an email, Rick, not when you carry on with someone else's wife." I could feel the heat of my anger, but underneath was a cold, sinking despair. Rick stood up, his movements slow. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "I never wanted to hurt you. You're not just my employee, you're my friend." That word, friend, struck a nerve. "Friends don't betray friends," I retorted, the pain sharp in my chest. "How long would this have continued if I hadn't found out? How much longer would you have lied to my face every day?" "I don't know," Rick replied, his voice low, "and that's the truth. I'm truly sorry." I shook my head, disgusted and disheartened. "Sorry doesn't fix this, Rick." Turning around, I left his office, the sound of the door closing behind me feeling like a chapter ending. The office felt stifling, every familiar corner a reminder of the betrayal. I knew then that nothing would be the same, not my job, not my marriage, and certainly not the illusion of friendship I had so naively believed in. The decision of what to do next felt heavier than anything I'd ever carried. As I drove away from the office, every turn of the wheel, every shift of the gears seemed to echo the turmoil inside me. What was the right move? Who did I tell? Did I want revenge, or did I want to salvage what was left of my dignity and move on? My first instinct was to call someone, anyone, maybe a friend, perhaps a family member, but each time I reached for the phone, I hesitated. Sharing this felt like it would make it all too real, too final, and yet keeping it to myself felt like a slow poison, eating away at my peace. The idea of revenge was tempting. It would be so easy to expose them, to tear down what they had so carelessly built at my expense. I could make a few calls, send a few emails, maybe even get them fired. But then what? Would that heal the hurt? Would it mend the broken trust or soothe the sting of betrayal? No, revenge might offer a fleeting satisfaction, but it wouldn't provide the closure I needed. It wouldn't rebuild the shattered pieces of my life. Forgiveness seemed like a noble path, the high road, as they say. But could I forgive them? Really forgive them, not just say the words, but let go of the anger and the hurt. That seemed like a mountain too daunting to climb. Forgiveness felt like a gift I wasn't ready to give, a concession I wasn't prepared to make. It wasn't just about forgiving Jenna, it was about forgiving myself for not seeing the signs, for trusting too blindly. And then there was the option of simply walking away, packing up my life, my broken heart, and starting somewhere fresh, somewhere where no one knew my shame or my pain. It was appealing, this idea of a new beginning, but it was also terrifying. Leaving meant giving up not just on Jenna and my job, but on everything I had worked so hard to build. It meant admitting defeat. As I continued to drive, the road ahead seemed unclear. Each option carried its own set of consequences, each path fraught with uncertainty. I needed to think, to weigh each decision against my own values and the future I still hoped to salvage. What did I want the next chapter of my life to look like? Who did I want to be in that story? By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sun had set, and the house looked dark and unwelcoming. I sat in the car for a long time, the silence around me a stark contrast to the noise in my head. I knew that no matter what I chose, the road ahead would be difficult, but I also knew that I had to make a decision, to take control of my story. That much I owed to myself. After hours of contemplation, the resolution to seek advice finally took hold. It wasn't something I could decide in isolation, surrounded by the walls echoing back my own conflicted thoughts. Reaching out seemed like the only viable step left before I could make a move, so I decided to call my older sister, Mara. Her insights had always guided me through life's tumultuous waves, and I trusted her judgment implicitly. The phone rang a few times before Mara picked up. "Hey, what's up?" Her voice instantly brought a measure of calm. Hesitating only a moment, I dove into the heart of my turmoil. "Mara, I found out something terrible," I started, the words tumbling out. "Jenna and Rick have been having an affair." The silence that followed felt heavy, laden with shock and concern. "Oh no," Mara finally whispered, her voice thick with empathy. "I'm so sorry. How are you holding up?" I confided how the knowledge had upended everything I believed about my marriage and my career. Mara listened quietly, interjecting only to clarify a detail or to offer a soft word of support. Once I had finished, she took a deep breath, and then she began to help me untangle the web of my thoughts. "What do you feel like you need to do next?" she asked gently, nudging me towards reflection rather than impulsive decision-making. I admitted I wasn't sure, torn between the desire for confrontation and the appeal of starting anew. Mara's advice was pragmatic. "Before you make any decisions about your future with Jenna or your job, think about what will bring you peace in the long run. Revenge might seem satisfying now, but it won't change what happened." She suggested I take some time off work to clear my head and consider my options away from the immediate triggers. "And as for Jenna," Mara continued, "you need to decide if your marriage can be salvaged, and more importantly, if you even want to save it. That's not a decision you have to make right now, but start thinking about what forgiveness might look like if you consider it." Mara also recommended documenting everything I knew about the affair, especially any potential overlaps with professional misconduct. "If things get messy with your job, or if legal issues arise, you'll want to have all your facts straight," she advised. Before we ended the call, Mara reminded me of my strengths. "You've always been level-headed and thoughtful," she said. "Use those strengths now. Don't let anger make decisions for you." Her words helped ground me, reminding me of who I was beyond the hurt and betrayal. Hanging up the phone, I felt more fortified to face what lay ahead. The path wasn't clear yet, but the conversation had helped frame my thoughts around constructive actions, rather than getting mired down in emotional reactivity. The plan to take some personal days was a start, a brief respite to strategize my next moves in navigating both my personal and professional crises. After much reflection, the decision was made. It was not to seek revenge or cause public humiliation, but rather to ensure professional integrity and personal closure. It was important to act in a way that preserved dignity and self-respect, both mine and potentially others involved. The plan was to confront the professional overlap of the personal betrayal discreetly but firmly, ensuring that my career did not suffer due to personal grievances. The following morning, I reached out to the Human Resources Department anonymously, expressing concerns about potential conflicts of interest affecting company decisions and morale. This was a delicate matter. It wasn't just about an affair, but about possible breaches of company policy and ethics that needed addressing. Meanwhile, I arranged a meeting with Rick in a neutral setting, away from the office. It was essential to handle this as professionally as possible, without the charged emotions of a personal confrontation. In this meeting, I intended to inform him that I was aware of the situation and had notified HR to review the matter, not out of spite, but out of a need to protect my professional interests and those of the company. I presented Rick with a choice. He could either step forward and address the issue with HR himself, demonstrating responsibility for his actions, or wait for the HR inquiry to reach him independently. This approach provided him with an opportunity to take control of the narrative from his end, potentially mitigating the consequences while maintaining some semblance of integrity. In parallel, I prepared a discreet exit from the company. I updated my resume, reached out to contacts in the industry, and began applying for jobs elsewhere. It was clear that regardless of the outcome, my career at the company was over. The trust was irrevocably broken, and it was time to move on to new opportunities, where I could work without the shadow of betrayal hanging over me. As I set these plans in motion, I felt a renewed sense of agency. While the situation was far from ideal, taking these steps allowed me to regain control over my career and personal life. It was about making the best out of a bad situation, focusing on the future rather than getting stuck in the past. The day of the meeting with Rick arrived. We sat down and I laid out my thoughts clearly and without malice. I explained that while personal decisions were his to make, when they spilled into the professional arena, they became my business as well. I kept the conversation focused on the professional implications, avoiding the messier emotional elements. After our discussion, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had handled the situation as best I could, ensuring that my professional path forward was clear and unencumbered by past associations. The next steps were to see how HR handled the situation and to continue my job search, hopeful for a fresh start and ready to leave behind the shadows of deceit. The repercussions of my actions began to unfold over the following weeks. The HR investigation into the affair and the potential conflict of interest it created was thorough and discreet, but word started to leak. It wasn't long before colleagues began piecing together the puzzle. The atmosphere at the office shifted. Whispers filled the hallways, sidelong glances were exchanged, and an air of discomfort settled over my team. Among friends and family, the news of Jenna's infidelity broke with heavy hearts, but also brought an outpouring of support. My closest friends rallied around me, offering everything from a listening ear to invitations for dinners to ensure I wasn't alone. Family members were more protective, some expressing anger on my behalf, others simply there to offer sympathy and advice. My sister was a constant presence, checking in daily, providing the emotional anchor I needed. At work, the dynamic changed irreversibly. Some colleagues who were once friendly grew distant, perhaps unsure how to address the personal tragedy that bled into professional realms. Others offered silent nods of support, respecting my privacy, but acknowledging the difficulty of the situation. My relationship with other executives, particularly those who were close to Rick, became strained. The professional network I had built over the years seemed to fracture under the weight of personal judgments and the scandal's fallout. Meanwhile, Rick faced his own set of consequences. His authority and decision making were called into question, and he was scrutinized for any past decisions that might have been influenced by his personal life. The respect he commanded dwindled, and his leadership was compromised. The board began to watch him closely, and discussions about his future at the company started to circulate among the highest levels of management. As for Jenna, our interactions became sparse and tense. We lived in the same house, but moved around each other like two planets in different orbits. Conversations were limited to necessities, about separation, logistics, and eventual legal considerations regarding our divorce. The emotional connection that had defined our marriage felt like a relic of a bygone era, now replaced by a cold civility. The community's reaction was varied. Some neighbors offered subtle gestures of support, knowing nods, or meals dropped off at the door. Others seemed to withdraw, perhaps uncomfortable with the personal drama or siding with Jenna out of loyalty or shared friendships. Social gatherings that were once lively and enjoyable became events I dreaded, unsure who knew the details of my personal life and how they judged the decisions I had made. Throughout all this, the one constant was the change within myself. The initial shock and betrayal gradually gave way to a contemplative resolve. I found strength in the support of those who stood by me and learned to let go of relationships that were weakened by the scandal. The personal fallout was painful, but also illuminating, revealing the true colors of many around me and teaching me about the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. As I navigated this complex web of professional and personal reactions, I focused on rebuilding and redefining my life's next chapter, one step at a time. Dealing with the emotional aftermath was perhaps the most challenging part of the entire ordeal. As days turned into weeks, the raw shock and anger began to ebb, leaving in their wake a deeper, more persistent ache, a mix of betrayal, disillusionment, and sorrow. Reflecting on the past few years, questions about what signs might have been missed or what missteps were made often occupied the mind. The decision to see a therapist came as a natural progression in seeking healing. In therapy sessions, discussions often centered around understanding the scope of the betrayal and its impact on self-esteem and trust. These conversations were tough but necessary, as they helped unpack the feelings of abandonment and deception, which are common in the aftermath of such personal betrayals. Therapy provided a safe space to explore these feelings without judgment, encouraging the articulation of grief that had been held back, the anger that had been muted, and the confusion that clouded thoughts. It was here that the realization dawned that forgiveness was not just about forgiving Jenna or even Rick, but about forgiving oneself for being human, for trusting, loving, and ultimately for enduring pain. This period was also one of intense self-reflection. Time was spent revisiting personal values and beliefs, questioning and sometimes reaffirming them. It became important to distinguish between the identity as a husband and as an individual, recognizing that while one role had altered dramatically, the other still held possibilities for growth and happiness. Self-care became a priority during this time. Activities that had been put on hold, like reading, hiking, and painting, were slowly reintroduced. These activities were not just distractions, but pathways to rediscovery, ways to reconnect with a life that felt genuine and fulfilling on its own terms. Discussions about the future also became a part of the therapeutic process. While the initial reaction to the betrayal had been to flee, to start anew elsewhere, therapy helped frame a new perspective on resilience and strength. It wasn't about escaping the past, but about facing it with a new understanding and moving forward with intention and hope. The support from friends and family played a crucial role during this phase. Their presence was a constant reminder that, Despite the fractures in one relationship, others remained intact and strong. They provided not just emotional support, but also perspectives that sometimes challenged and at other times reinforced personal reflections. In dealing with loneliness, it was crucial to differentiate it from solitude. Solitude was chosen, a state of being alone without being lonely, providing space to heal and gather strength. Loneliness, on the other hand, was a reminder of the void left by Jenna's absence, something that had to be acknowledged and addressed through connections with others and with self. As the therapy sessions continued, a transformation gradually began to take shape. It wasn't dramatic or sudden, but a slow cultivation of strength and clarity. The journey through the emotional reckoning was about more than just dealing with an affair. It was about understanding deeper emotional currents and learning how to navigate them. This process, though born from pain, gradually became a story of empowerment and profound personal growth. Building a new life started with the foundation of resilience and healing laid down during the therapy sessions. The decision to leave the job at the marketing firm became a turning point. It wasn't just about leaving a place that harbored painful memories, but about seizing control over the career and steering it towards new horizons. The search for a new job was both daunting and exhilarating. Each interview felt like stepping into a new chapter, full of possibilities and free from the shadows of the past. Networking with industry peers opened up opportunities that hadn't been considered before. Attending workshops and seminars not only broadened professional skills, but also helped in rebuilding a social circle that was separate from the life previously shared with Jenna. This re-engagement with the professional community reinforced a sense of self-worth and ambition that had been dulled by personal crises. Starting anew also meant exploring personal interests that had been neglected. Joining a local hiking group brought the joy of connecting with nature and meeting people who shared similar interests. Each trail conquered was a reminder of the progress being made, both physically and emotionally. Photography, once a casual hobby, took on new significance. Capturing moments of beauty and tranquility became a way of documenting the journey of recovery and rediscovery. The home environment underwent changes as well, redecorating the living space to reflect current tastes and experiences helped in reclaiming the home as a personal sanctuary. It was no longer a place tainted by betrayal, but a reflection of the new life being crafted. Simple changes like new curtains, a fresh coat of paint, or rearranging the furniture made a significant impact on the feel of the space, making it feel truly personal and new. Re-entering the dating world was approached with cautious optimism. It was not about replacing what was lost or filling a void, but about opening up to new experiences and connections. Online dating platforms and social events became avenues to meet new people. Each interaction, whether it blossomed into something more or not, was a step forward in learning to trust and enjoy companionship again. Financial independence was also a key focus. The divorce had brought financial strain, but also the impetus to manage finances more proactively. Setting new financial goals, such as saving for a dream vacation or investing in further education, provided tangible targets to work towards and helped in maintaining a forward-looking perspective. Community involvement became another facet of building a new life. Volunteering at local charities and participating in community events fostered a sense of belonging and purpose. Giving back to the community not only enriched others' lives, but also provided a sense of fulfillment and connection that had been missing. As this new life took shape, the importance of maintaining balance became clear. It wasn't just about staying busy or filling the calendar with activities. It was about making meaningful choices that supported overall well-being and happiness. This balance between personal growth, professional fulfillment, and community engagement marked the true beginning of a new chapter, one that was chosen, cherished, and celebrated for its independence and its potential. The journey through personal upheaval and professional betrayal culminated in profound self discovery and newfound peace. Reflecting on the events of the past months, the transformation from confusion and heartbreak to stability and strength was both challenging and enlightening. This reflection brought clarity and a deeper understanding of personal values and desires, illuminating the path forward. Finding peace was not about forgetting the past or the pain it held, it was about embracing it as a part of the journey that shaped current realities and future possibilities. The process of healing taught valuable lessons about resilience, the importance of self care, and the power of forgiveness, not just towards others, but towards oneself. These lessons became guideposts for navigating life's complexities and uncertainties. Forgiveness emerged as a crucial element in moving forward. It was learned that holding on to anger and resentment served only to prolong suffering. Forgiving Jenna and Rick was a deliberate choice to let go of the weight that dragged down the spirit. This act of forgiveness did not excuse their actions, but freed from the emotional burden they imposed. It was a gift to oneself, a vital step in healing and reclaiming peace. The transformation also included a re-evaluation of what happiness and success truly meant. Previously, these concepts were tightly linked to career achievements and a stable home life. Now, understanding deepened that happiness and success were more personal and less defined by external validation. They were found in moments of tranquility, in the achievements of personal goals, and in the joy of new experiences and connections. Looking ahead, the future was viewed not with apprehension, but with anticipation for what was yet to come. The plans included continuing to explore personal interests, furthering professional skills in a new job environment, and maintaining an active role in community service. These elements were not just activities, but parts of a holistic approach to living a full and meaningful life. Moreover, the importance of relationships, nurtured not by necessity, but by genuine connection, became clearer. Whether rekindling old friendships or exploring potential romantic relationships, each was approached with a sense of intentionality and openness, informed by past experiences but driven by hope and understanding.